Hi, this is the help video for Access Chapter 6, the Prepare Case B. We're going to begin working on a function that's very powerful in a query, and it's called the immediate if function. And it is what's known as a binary function, meaning that you do some kind of a test, and then you would either do one thing if the test evaluated as true, and a second thing if it evaluated as false. And we're going to do a couple different things with this query, and it's really going to be steps 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to end up with the first use of the immediate if is going to look at, in the table employee, it's going to look at this salary field, and we're going to create this raise assessment. And based on if an employee's salary is $40,000 or less, we want to return give raise. Otherwise, maybe raise. And one of the things that you want to make sure that you understand is you ask the question once and it evaluates as true or false. In this simple if, there's only one question. And so let's go ahead and start building it so we can talk about it as we build. I'm going to go into query design and use the table employee. That's the only table that I need. I'm going to open that up, and really there's just 3 fields that I'm going to put in here: first name, last name, and salary, because the other 3 that we're going to end up with are really functions. They're calculations. So we know when we want to do a calculated field, we go to the first empty column to the right, and I always do a right-click zoom that brings us to our zoom window. I'm going to make sure my font's big enough. It's okay. And so the first thing we put in any calculation is what is the name of this new calculated field. And so that's raise assessment, colon. Remember, left of the colon is the name, right of the colon is the formula. And this formula is using so that's IIF, parentheses. And then you need, what is your test? Well, your test is if salary, and salary is a field, so you have to do a square bracket, salary, square bracket, less than or equal 40000, comma. So this first element of our if is the test. So the test is, hey, look at the salary, and if that salary value is $40,000 or less, then we're going to say give raise. Otherwise, if the salary is over $40,000, we're going to say maybe raise. So notice that I put give raise in quotes because that's a literal, and maybe raise is a literal. This is the equation, so I don't have that. And then I separate the pieces of the function. I delimitate those sections with the comma. So I'm going to go ahead and do OK, and I'm going to run it. So let's just double check. Excuse me. So 57, that's above 40, so maybe raise. Here's one less than, over, less. So it looks like it worked, right? So now we have this new field that has the give raise or maybe raise as part of it. So that's step 2. Step 3 is we're going to continue with this same query, and we're going to do another new field. And so this one, if we look at this, should return a 5.5% increase in salary for any employee whose salary is $40,000 or less. So here's the condition, guys. $40,000 or less, same as up here. If it's less than or equal to 40,000, then their raise option 1 would be their current salary times 1.45. 1.045. Because we want an increase. We're not looking at what the, hold on a second. I'm sorry, I am wrong. They're not really looking at what the new salary would be with the increase. They're looking at what that 4.5% increase would be. So that makes it a little bit simpler in the math. So we're going to go to this next new blank field, right? That's where we go to put a calculated field, right-click and zoom. And then the first thing we do is, what's the name of this new calculated field? Well, it's called raise option 1, and then the colon. That tells me I'm done naming it. See, raise option 1. So then we're going to do the if, and then parentheses, square bracket, salary, square bracket, less than or equal to 40,000. And what are we going to do if that evaluates as true? In other words, they make less than 40,000. Well, we're going to figure out, based on their salary, what the, and we could do it like this, what their increase would be, right? That's what we're looking for here, is the increase, not the new salary value. So we're taking salary and we're multiplying it by 4.5%. There's a couple different ways you can do that, but this is the way that my IT lab is looking for it. So I check salary. If it's less than or equal to 40,000, then I'm going to run this calculation and put it in the new field. And then here's my comma. So now this next piece is what happens if it's false. It's a 0. So we're going to put a 0 in there, and we end our parentheses. So if I do OK and I run it, I got an error. Let's see what I did wrong. Okay, so I got a little confused there. I was switching over to Excel. So we're going to take this away, and we're going to do 0.045, because that's 4.5, right? We move the decimal over twice to get the 4.5%. Now let's see if it works. There we go. Ooh, but this doesn't look very good, right? So let's look at this. Format raise option 2. We're on raise option 1 though. Currency. Okay, so I'm going to go back to design, and on raise option 1, this is how I always do it. I go to property sheet, format, down arrow, and they want currency. Click, run it. Now it looks good. So here's under 40. So let's look at somebody over. So these people, raise option 1, right? It's a 0 because that's a false. This is not less than or equal to 40. So if we look at all of these, yep, it's figured it out. All right, let's go back. Hey, you know what? We haven't saved this. Let's save this because I don't want to lose this. So QRYIIF. And then we can do step number 4. Step number 4 is a little bit more complicated because it's talking about how you can nest ifs. And so nesting just means in one of the pathways, either the true or the false, you embed another test because you might have more than one condition. Remember we said, more than 2 conditions. We said ifs are binary. There's a true path and a false path. But what if I have 3 things that could happen or 4 things that could happen? Then I need to learn how to embed a second test inside of the first test. So if we look at this, it says raise option 2 should return a 4.5 increase in salary for any employee whose salary is 40 or less. Okay, we got that done. For any employee whose salary is greater than, so that would be what the false is for this one, but less than or equal to 75. So that's the second. So if we get into the false because it's not less than 40, so now we're in the false path, we can do another test and say, hey, less than or equal to 75. If that's true, then we're going to get a 2%. Otherwise, it's going to stay at 0, right? So we're building in 3 levels. Less than 40,000, you're getting 4.5. Less than 75, you're getting a 2%. Over 75, you're not getting anything, right? So we have those 3 conditions, but it begins the same way. We go to this first blank, we right click, and we zoom. This field is going to be called raise option 2 colon. And then we just begin our if parentheses. Our first test, it's all the same. Salary less than or equal to 40. And the true is the same, right? We're going to take salary times 0.045. But here, instead of putting a 0 like we did in raise option 1, we're going to embed another if and have another test. So we're going to do salary less than or equal to 75,000. So that's our next step, if you will, of where the raise is. So this particular if has a true and a false, just like this one. So the true for this first, so if the salary is less than 75,000, then we're going to take salary times, and it's a 2% increase, so 0.02. And then for this one, it's a 0, right? The false would be a 0. We're going to close that up, and we're going to close that up. And here's a mistake that students often make, is these ending parentheses. So you always want to have, I have 1 left, 2 left, I need 2 right. Let's go ahead and see if it runs. Okay, so let's do a little test. So, okay, so this salary is 57. So on the raise option 1, they don't get anything because it's not less than 40,000. But it is less than 75. So in this raise option 2, they do get a little bit of a raise. And so what I would do is I'd pull out my calculator and I'd make sure that these raises are the correct value. So let's look for one that's 0, 0. Okay, 78, 77, 100. Those people are getting nothing, right? So let's go back and let's fix this one. Property sheet, format, currency, run it again, and there it looks good. So let's go ahead and save it. And this does take a little bit of practice, guys. Don't, like, if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't understand. It's okay. It is a complicated thing. But my advice for something like this is really just break it down. You know, don't try and think of the whole thing at once. Almost how we did it here, where we did the simple one and then we built on. Because we know it worked here. So then we could substitute, instead of the 0, the second if. And it's nothing more complicated than what we did originally. It's just embedded. All right, this is the end of this movie. So we're done with step 4. Mark that off. And we'll pick up on step 5 in the next movie. Thank you.